The Steelers have a key waiver wire option potentially available for your fantasy team in week 13. My name is Joe Dolan. This is the Fantasy Points Daily Lineup for Thursday, December 1st, 2022.
It's time for the FantasyPoints.com Daily Lineup. Staying on top of the latest news and updates around the NFL. Rise and shine, folks. We're taking the field. Here's your host, FantasyPoints.com's Joe Dolan.
Please remind me, by the way, to pay the mortgage. It's December 1st. I gotta get on that. We don't know who will be starting at quarterback for the Bears in week 13. Coach Matt Eberflus said Wednesday that Justin Fields will practice in a limited capacity with his shoulder injury, and that his status for Sunday's game against the Packers remains unclear. This is per Jason Leeser of the Chicago Sun-Times. The Bears will clearly be careful with Fields, given their season is already lost. What has been a positive takeaway for the Bears this year has been Fields' improved play over the last month plus before his injury. It gives them something to build on for 2023. But the way to ruin that would be a major or aggravated injury that requires lengthy rehab in the offseason. If Fields plays, he's a slam dunk QB1 for fantasy, of course, but the Bears have every reason to be cautious. Trevor Siemian, by the way, had a pretty heroic performance through his oblique injury in week 12, but didn't practice on Wednesday. Check your waiver wire for our first running back today. Steelers' Jaylen Warren was a full participant in Wednesday's practice, Mike DeFabo of The Athletic reports, as he looks to return from his hamstring injury. Warren told reporters that doctors have cleared him to return from the hamstring ahead of Sunday's game against the Falcons. This is a potentially huge fantasy development with Najee Harris, a DNP, on Wednesday. Warren, Najee's dealing with an abdominal injury, by the way. Warren could well lead a backfield committee in week 13, which is a strong matchup with Atlanta. Remember that Warren left week 11 early with a hamstring injury that Mike Tomlin described as not significant. So this was kind of expected after he missed week 12. Barring a setback, Warren is my preferred Steeler running back this week over Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland. In our second running back spot today, we have someone playing tonight. Ramondre Stevenson is set up for a big workload in week 13 because Damian Harris has been ruled out for Thursday's game against Buffalo with a thigh injury. Now, for the second consecutive week, the Patriots grayed out as having our worst run game matchup of the entire slate per fantasy points data on offensive line stats. Their backs combined for just 52 yards on 12 carries against the Vikings last week. This week, on Thursday, Harris will be unavailable, as I already mentioned, so Stevenson will be the bell cow in a difficult matchup. But here's the good news. Stevenson has produced double-digit fantasy points as a receiver alone. Remove all his rushing production. Remove it all. And as a receiver alone, he's produced double-digit fantasy points in 5 consecutive games. He has more points as a receiver than Mike Evans over that span, and Jacoby Myers, too, for a more direct comparison. Mac Jones threw for 382 yards in week 12, and Stevenson led the team with 9 catches and was second with 76 receiving yards. And he led them in receiving with 56 yards in week 11. Despite the matchup, he's a strong RB1 and a potential league winner down the stretch. In our first wide receiver spot, Jamar Chase is continuing to progress. Chase told reporters that he is preparing as though he will play Sunday in their great tilt with the Chiefs. This is per Marissa Contepelli of the Bengals official website. Now, I didn't have any perfect analysis here because Jamar Chase kind of did it for me. Paul Dehner of The Athletic had a really interesting Twitter thread that I kind of want to read to you right now. Paul Dehner saying that Jamar Chase went through what happened with his hip in the timeline today, and Dehner wants to lay it all out here. Chase said he sustained the hairline fracture to his hip against the Saints on a touchdown in the end zone, hyperextended the knee, and it went up to the hip. The next week, before the Atlanta game, he couldn't really move. This is a direct quote. I was too stiff, so took it easy in practice, but felt a little better by the end of the week. Come the Atlanta game, quote, my adrenaline was hyped and I felt good playing, end quote. So he went and scored 2 touchdowns. He went down versus Atlanta. Quote, I re-aggravated again right before the half. I felt it pop and couldn't really walk, so I sat down. That was that was evident. You could see that on the television broadcast. And he came back to play in the second half. Why? Quote, "I don't know what's wrong with me. My adrenaline was going and I just didn't want to come out, so I stayed in. The Atlanta re-aggravation caused him to get a second opinion. Then they found the fracture. Suggested there was a difference of opinion over the seriousness of the labrum. Quote, I was getting two different sides of it, but it wasn't torn," end quote. He spent most of his time at home in the last few weeks streaming, playing video games. He was on crutches and eventually got back to the facility. He said he took it as a mental break, totally get away from football, lean on family, think about the big picture. Quote, "Reminded me, can't take anything for granted." They thought Tennessee would be his first game back, but Chase wasn't comfortable. Made the call not to play, thinking about his long-term future, wanted to be 100%. Said he wasn't nervous, but, quote, "I never really know what's going to be the outcome until playing again." Chase said he's preparing to play versus Kansas City. Quote, "We're going to see how I feel later in the week, but I'm expecting to take some reps." He reports no pain. Quote, "I feel great. I don't have no pains, no feelings right now in nothing I'm doing, or I wouldn't be practicing at all." So that's a long thread, but I thought it was an interesting look into his rehab and what happened and how freaking tough these guys are. So it looks like he might be limited, but as a wide receiver 3 with significant upside in this matchup with the Chiefs, I'd probably be sucking it up and playing Chase. At wide receiver 2, the Packers may get another rookie involved this week. Remember Romeo Doubs? He's kind of been overshadowed recently. Well, he returned to practice on Wednesday in a limited fashion per ESPN's Rob Demovsky. Doubs has missed 3 straight games since suffering a high ankle sprain on the first play of the game in Week 9. And he was emerging as someone whom Aaron Rodgers trusted. And in his absence, fellow rookie Christian Watson has scored 6 touchdowns in the last 3 games. We really haven't seen both rookies healthy at the same time for much of this year. And it might give Packer fans really something to be excited about in an overall lost season. Doubs is worth a speculative add in deeper leagues, even if Watson is kind of the number 1. But it wouldn't be shocking if Watson's kind of the big play guy and Doubs is somebody Aaron Rodgers looks to move the chains, presuming Aaron Rodgers plays this week as expected. And finally, there's more pain for the Rams in our flex spot. Rams head coach Sean McVay said Wednesday that it's, quote, "safe to say Matthew Stafford isn't in line to play Sunday against the Seahawks with his concussion and neck issues." This is per Jordan Rodriguez of The Athletic. McVay would not say who would get the majority of first-team reps between John Wolford and Bryce Perkins. And at this point, we might not see Stafford for the rest of the season. With all the Rams injuries along the offensive line and at receiver, putting Stafford back out there would likely be foolish and would subject him to undue punishment. The Rams have their ring, and they always will. That cannot be ignored. But they are indeed in the midst of the worst ever follow-up to a Super Bowl title. The only team in NFL history to lose 10 games the year after winning the Super Bowl are the 1999 Broncos, the year after John Elway retired. These Rams are 3-8. By the way, Aaron Donald is also already ruled out for Sunday's game. It will be the first missed game for injury of his entire career. I'm Joe Dolan. This has been the Fantasy Points Daily Lineup. Welcome to December, everybody. We're hitting the home stretch for fantasy, so I'll see you in the fantasypoints.com subscriber Discord, chatting, answering questions, all that stuff. It'll be fun. And for those of you who enjoyed your Fantasy Points subscription this year, stay tuned. Our super early bird special, 30% off a subscription for 2023, is launching in the next couple of weeks. So you'll definitely want to be on top of that. I'll mention it here on the daily lineup when it does launch. And I'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Enjoy the Thursday night game.